What's up everybody, welcome back. So I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and had some time to spend with their friends and loved ones. And right now it's time to get back into some game dev. So today we're going to start setting up our team deathmatch. And most of the work we're going to do is in the lobby, and there's going to be a little bit of work in the actual game for friendly fire and stuff like that. But most of it's going to be in the lobby and the game mode. So we're going to add a team size option to our current existing options, and then later we're going to set up the team deathmatch stuff. So the project I have here is a little bit further down the line. We're not going to be able to do all this today, but this is to show what it's going to look like. So I can select a different game mode, for example, and then you will see the amount of players change over here. And we also have our team deathmatch game mode in here. So we can set the amount of teams and the amount of players. So I'm the server, I can set all of that stuff over here. So for example, if I want 3 teams with 4 players and then click accept, you will see everything change. And each player can pick which team he wants to be on. So that can be selected as well. Like this, for example. And if we go in the game modes, we also have a auto assign team option, and in that case the server will ignore the settings the player have chosen and it will auto assign the teams if I start the game. And if I start the game, I will get a little bit of a countdown over here so I can see which team I'm on and what's going to happen. So that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna start setting this up today. So let's dive into it. First of all, there's 2 small things from the previous videos I want to take a look at. So if we go to the widgets folder and we open up our in-game HUD. So at the beginning in event construct, I disconnected the image for the original blood overlay. And we're actually still using that for our melee attacks from the AI. So we want to make sure that we hook it up to the set color and opacity in our event construct over here. So let's look for our original blood overlay image. So not the one we chopped up in 8 different pieces, but the one that covers the entire screen. And we're simply going to plug it in over here as well. So that should fix one little issue. And then just a little thing I want to mention over here in the calculate damage direction when making the video. I actually set these numbers wrong. So I set 175 and it's actually 157. So that was kind of confusing. So you might want to make sure you have the correct numbers in here, which is 157 and then 23. And here we have 68 and again 115 and 157. So just a little side note over there. So with that stuff in place, let's start working on our team size option. So whenever I make changes like this, I want to make sure that the current setup we have is working. So first what we're going to do is add an option to change the team size, and that will also work for our free-for-all game mode. And we're going to set up the lobby with little widgets that we can add and remove for the player names, so we can have a little bit more of a dynamic setup. So first we're going to make sure that our existing setup works with our new setup. A bit confusing, sorry. And after that we're going to add the actual team deathmatch stuff. So first of all, let's start adding the maximum team size option. And for that we're going to go to the framework folder, and inside of the game mode options we want to add 2 new settings. So we're going to add a new variable in here. And the first one is going to be our maximum team size. And again, that's going to be an array of integers. And we're also going to add one for our number of teams. So let's add that right away. And then we don't have to keep coming back into the structure to make changes. So we have that set up, and then we're going to go into the game mode options table, and we want to make sure that we set up the correct options. So for the free-for-all game mode, we actually have the number of team options, and that's simply going to be 1. So let's add 1 array element in here and set 1. And then we can add something like, well, whatever you want for the amount of players. So I'm going to make it that we are able to select 2 till 8 players. So I'm simply going to add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those will be the available options for our free-for-all match. Now I'm also going to add a row in here for, no, we're going to do the team deathmatch stuff later. So right now, let's stick to this stuff. So we have the free-for-all options added. And now we want to go inside of our widget menu. So we're going to go to the widget blueprint lobby menu. And in here, we want to make sure that we also have a setting for our maximum team size. So we're going to grab one of these horizontal boxes and we can simply duplicate it. And then we want to rename some stuff. So this is going to be the maximum team size. So there we go. And then we want to change the name of the variable for the actual setting box. So that's going to be setting max team size. And we want to extend our border a little bit. So let's just drag it down. And that should be good. So with that stuff set up, we can start taking a look at the graph. So there's a few things we need to do with all of these settings. We need to make sure that the server can pass them on to all of the other clients, so they actually know in what kind of a match they are. But we also need to make sure that the server can send all of the settings to the game instance, so the game instance can send them to the game mode when the game starts. So we're going to start working on that stuff. And the first thing we're going to do is add a function inside of our lobby menu. And this function will make sure that the server can set all of the current options on the game instance. So we're going to call this function apply selected game mode settings. Options, let's make it options. Settings, it doesn't really matter. So apply selected game mode options. Let me take care of this typo. There we go. So let me add a little comment in here to make it a little bit easier. So this runs server only, and this will tell the game instance the current game mode options. So sets selected game mode options on game instance. So the first thing we want to do is get our actual game instance. So let's get the game instance in here, and we want to cast it to our own game instance. So that's the shooter game instance, and plug it in over here. So on the shooter game instance, we have our option string. So first we want to clear it. So we're going to set our option string and just make it empty. And then we're going to build it from scratch again. So we have a function on the game instance to make this option string. So we can simply call that. And that's called make options string. So we can plug it in over here. And we simply want to pass on all of the current game mode settings. So we can simply get them from the variables or the setting boxes. So we're going to look for our setting duration over here. That's the match duration. We can drag it in, and then we can get the selected option. Over here, get selected option. So this will return a string, and this is the actual minutes of gameplay. So we want to make sure that we multiply this with the seconds. So in the game mode, we actually have our settings stored in seconds. So that's for the match timer. So in this case, we want to make sure that we turn it into an integer, string to integer, and then we can multiply it with 60. So multiply 60, and then we need to turn this integer back into a string, and that's the new setting. So we can just plug it into the new setting. And this is actually the setting for the match duration. So that's the first option set, and we want to make sure that we do it for all of our options. So we can copy this stuff, and we don't need the multiplier in this case. So let's paste it over here. And this time we're going to add the score limit. So we have setting score limit. Let's replace the node over here. And then we can simply plug the selected option in the new setting. And we need to make sure that we change the name, and that's going to be the score limit. And we need to plug in the game instance. So there we go. The next one is our respawn delay. So let's grab all of this again, paste it over here. And we're going to look for the setting respawn delay, replace the node, and plug in the game instance over here. And then we need to change the option name, and that's the respawn delay. Now we want to make a switch for the current game mode. So let's grab our game mode's enumeration in here, and we're going to get the current index. So get a copy, and we're going to plug in the game mode index. So this will return the current game mode that we have selected. And we're going to switch on this. Plug it in over here. So these settings we can pretty much hard code most of them. So we need a few variables, and let's create those first. The first one is going to be the number of teams. So that's an integer. And then we also need one for the maximum team size. So that's also an integer. And I'm also going to create one for the endless wave game mode. And I'm just going to make that a static variable in here. So we cannot change the amount of players in the endless wave game mode. If you want to make that, it's not too hard. You can simply copy the settings for the free-for-all stuff. So for the endless wave game mode, I'm simply going to make a static variable in here, game mode, endless wave, and then the maximum team size. Oh, really? And for this one, I'm going to compile and set the default value to 4. So there we go. Now for endless wave. Let's drag in a setter over here, and we want to set both of these for number of teams to 1. There we go. Then we're going to grab our maximum team size, and for the endless wave we're going to set it to our game mode endless wave setting. And then for the free for all stuff we can grab the setting from the setting box. So we can do this stuff again. So let's copy it. Paste it over here, and we want to plug in our setting. There we go, maximum team size, and replace the node over here so we can plug it in, and that's good to go. And then we need to make sure that we pass this stuff on to the game instance as well. So let's grab one of these nodes, paste them over here, and this time we're gonna set our number of teams and maximum team size, so we actually don't need to get them from here because we just stored them in these variables. So let's grab number of teams, plug it in over here into the new setting, and this is going to be the setting number of teams. Let's make that an R, that's probably better. There we go. And then we also want to do it for the maximum team size. So let's copy it again, grab our maximum team size, plug it in the new setting, and change the name of it. Oh, really? There we go. So this is going to be maximum team size. Okay. So this function will tell the game instance all of the correct settings. So we need to make sure that we plug in the game instance into these nodes over here to get rid of the error. And now that should work. So with that thing in place, we can go to the event graph, and we want to make sure that we call this every time the server will actually select the game mode. So we're going to go to the accept button for our game mode options. So we have button game mode accept. Let's view the event. And right here, we want to call our new function, and we can get rid of this stuff because we just created a function for this and added our new options to it. So let's grab everything from the cast to game instance and let's delete it. And then we're simply going to call our apply selected game mode options. Plug it in over here. And that should be good. So now every time the server clicks the accept button over here, after he may have made some changes, everything will get passed on to the game instance. So at least the game instance knows the correct settings. Now we're going to go into the update game mode options. So we have a function for that already. And in here we want to make a few small changes as well. So let me grab my notes in here. So this function also runs on the server only, and this actually runs after the server selected a different game mode, and this will populate the menu with all of the correct settings. So if the server clicked one of these buttons over here, for example, the game mode will change, and then the update game mode options function will run, and all of the settings in the boxes will be set to the correct available options and things like that. So if we do that, right at the end, we want to make sure that we also call our apply selected game mode options. So we're simply going to plug it in over here. And because we also setting them, we can get rid of this stuff because we just created this function for it. So we can grab all of the make option strings right at the end here, get rid of them, and then grab the last set selected index and plug it into the apply selected game mode options. And then we also want to add our new settings to this, obviously. And we're going to make a switch for the game modes. So first of all, let's start at the beginning over here. We're going to move the clear options to the side a little bit. And then we're going to drag off the game mode that comes from the event or function, and we're going to switch on it. So we're going to plug this in right in between here. And then for the free-for-all branch, we can simply hook it back up. So we're going to plug it back into the GameInstance cast. And then for the endless wave, we want to make sure that we disable our game mode options button. So we're going to go to our button game mode options. There we go. We're going to drag it in over here, and we're going to set is enabled. So we cannot set different options for the endless wave game mode. So we're going to disable the button, and then we're simply going to set our number of teams right here. So we're going to set it to 1. And we're going to set the maximum team size and simply plug in the variable for the endless wave maximum team size. And then we also want to make sure that we call our apply selected game mode options. So from here, we're going to go all the way to the end and plug it directly into the apply selected game mode options. And over here, we can actually get rid of this part for the shooter game instance that removes the option string, because we're already doing this over here in the apply selected game mode. So let's get rid of these nodes as well and plug the free-for-all pin right into the data table node. Okay, so that should take care of this function. Now all we need to do is make sure that we grab our maximum team size setting as well. So we're not actually really done in here. So let's go to one of these for each loops, and we're going to copy all of this stuff, paste it over here. So let's plug them in first. So plug the set selected index into the for each loop, and then the last completed pin goes to our apply selected game mode options. And over here we want to make sure that we set our maximum team size setting. So we're going to grab our settings, maximum team size, and replace the node over here, and that should pretty much take care of it. So that's good to go. Compile, and we forgot to plug in the actual array, so we need to go all the way over here, and it's not expanded, so that's nice. Maximum team size, so that's the array over here, and that's also for the length node. Plug both of them into our maximum team size setting from the data table. So now that should compile. There we go. Okay, so we have everything set on the widget, and this will actually update the game instance. So now we need to make sure that our game mode knows it as well. So then from the game mode, we can replicate it to all of the clients. So all of the clients knows all of the settings as well. So first of all, we're going to go into our menu game mode. So let's open that one up, menu game mode. And first of all, let's add our new variables in here. So let's create new variable, the maximum team size. That's an integer. And we're also going to add our number of teams. Now we want to make sure that we go to our select game mode. So set selected game mode, this event over here. So this event will be called from the widget when the server selects a game mode, and then it will call the update lobby event to update the lobby for all of the other players. So in here we want to add our number of teams and our maximum team size. So let's grab two setters for those. Plug them in over here, and we want to connect up the execution pins. And then we're simply going to add these to the event as an input. So there we go. Now that we have this set up, we can go back into our lobby menu and make sure that we use this. So we're going to go a little bit back and forward right now because we need to add some inputs to events before we can use them. So there's not really a way around it. So we're going to go back to the widgets folder and open our lobby menu again. And in the lobby menu, we have a select game mode function. So we're going to go to that function, select game mode. And in here, we want to make a few small changes. So we have our new input pins in here, but we also want to make sure that we call our update game mode options before we call our set selected game mode. So let me grab my notes in here quickly. We're going to move this around. So let's grab the first node and make a little bit of room over here. Then we're going to grab our update game mode options node, and we're going to move that all the way to the beginning. So this is the first thing we're going to call. Plug it in over here. Oh, really? And make sure that we plug in the correct enum again. Then we want to go to our shooter game instance and make sure that we set our selected game mode. So we're going to move this stuff to the front as well. So let's disconnect this. Let's get it out of the way. Get rid of this reroute. Plug it in over here and make sure that we connect up our enum again. So we have our selected game mode string set as well. And then we're going to grab our game mode and call our set selected game mode. So we can plug it in over here. Make sure that we reconnect our enum, and we're going to simply plug in our variables in here. So maximum team size and number of teams. There we go. And then we can plug it back into the return node. So this one should be good to go. And now we are also going to create a new function to update the player amounts. So let's go to functions, create a new one and call that update player amounts. And that's going to be pretty simple at this moment, but later we're going to expand this. So this will actually execute on all of the clients, so all of the players, not just the server. And this will simply set the visible settings in the game mode so they know what we're up against. So update player amounts is going to have two inputs, and that's simply going to be the number of teams and the maximum team size integers. So let's add those first. Maximum team size, number of teams. And we simply want to set them. So we're going to set our number of teams and maximum team size. Plug them in over here. Make sure that we plug in the correct ones. So that's a little bit messy. There we go. And now for later, I'm also going to add a local variable in here, and that's the total player count. So we're simply going to create a local variable, and that's local total player count. And that's an integer. And then we can multiply these two. So we're going to multiply the maximum team size with the number of teams and store that in our total player count. So we have this one set up for later. And that's all we're going to do in here right now. So we're going to compile and save it. Now we can go back into our event graph. And we want to make a few small updates in here. So let me grab my notes. We have this option, we have this event when we select a new game mode option. And after we apply the selected game mode options on our game instance, we also want to update everything on the game mode. So we're going to get the game mode in here. So this options can only be set by the server. So we know we are the server and we actually have access to our game mode. So we can cast it to our menu game mode, sorry, not the shooter game mode. We're still in the lobby menu, so plug it in over here. And after we casted it, we can call our set selected game mode, and that will call the update lobby event to update everything for the clients. So we're going to set the selected game mode. And in this case, we want to plug in the variables, so we can simply grab our game mode's enumeration and get the correct index. So get a copy of the game mode index. And then we can plug in the maximum team size and the number of teams directly from the variables. So this will update the game mode. Now we're going to go into the player controller. So if the server calls this, we need to make sure that we have a replicated event, so the server can replicate things back to the owning client, so the clients can update their widgets. And the easiest place to do that is inside of our menu controller. So let's go there. Framework, menu controller. And in here we want to make sure that we pass on the new inputs. So we're going to go to the update game mode event. So over here we already have this event in place and we're simply only updating the game mode in here, and we're going to add the update for the player amounts. So drag off the lobby menu and we're going to call our update player amounts. So we're going to plug it in right in here, and then we can pass on the variables to the event. So we're going to simply drag them on here. So we have these set up as inputs right now. We can compile and save it, and then we can go back into our menu game mode. And over here we need to make sure that we actually pass on the variables. So we're going to go to our update lobby event, and all the way at the end we have the call to our update game mode event in the player controller, so the one we just added the inputs to. And over here we can simply plug in the maximum team size and the number of teams as well. And then there's one thing I want to do in here while we're still in here. Let's go to the event on logout, and over here we're updating the lobby and we want to make sure that we enable the game mode boolean as well. So right now it's not that big of a deal, but later if we have actual team deathmatch and a player leaves, we want to update everything as well. So right now we should have everything in place, and although we can't really use it and we probably can hardly see we changed anything, we still did some important setup. So let's see if we go to our free-for-all. Yeah, nothing really changes over here because we obviously didn't change the actual designer. But we can go into the game mode options and we do have a maximum team size setting over here, and that's actually not working. So that's nice. Let's have a look why that is, and then we're gonna wrap it up for today. Okay, I'm an idiot. So inside the game mode options table, I mixed up the two variables. So we have the maximum team size and I set it to 1 and the number of teams to 8. So this needs to be swapped around. So let's just add options in here. So we have the maximum team size of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we can get rid of this stuff and simply add 1 team. So now this should work. So if we go back in game, multiplayer host. So if I go to free for all, so right now we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 players. Okay, we're not going to end it. So I realized we're not even half an hour in. So we can probably just set up a little bit more for the lobby menu. So we actually have a feeling we accomplished something today. So let's continue by making the widgets for the player names. And there's one small thing I want to do first, and let's go into the framework folder and open our menu controller. And in here we actually have an event that's for updating the player names. So update player names over here. And first we're calling clear player names, and the only place where we do that is over here. So what I want to do is replace this call inside the update player names function. So in here I'm going to get rid of it and simply connect this back up and then go into this event. So double click it. And the first thing I want to do in here is call our clear player names. So that actually makes a little bit more sense. So that's done. Now we can start working on the widget for the names in the lobby. So let's go to the widgets folder and we're going to create a new user interface widget blueprint, and that's the user widget class. So widget blueprint, lobby player name row, for example. And let's open it up. So this is not going to be too hard. First we're going to grab a border and drag it in here. So this is going to be a variable. So let's change the name, and it's going to be the border player name. And then I'm going to change the actual color. So I'm going to make it black and a little bit transparent. So 0.3 or something like that. And that should be good. Then we're going to grab a horizontal box and drop it right on top of here. So for the horizontal box, I'm only going to change the vertical alignment to top. So it will align to the top. And then I'm going to grab some text, drop it in here. And the first one is going to be the text for the player name. So let's change the name over here, text player name, and let's make it a variable. Then let's make sure that we have the correct font set up. So let's go inside of a widget somewhere and let's copy the font. And paste it over here, and that should be good. So I'm gonna size it down, maybe 20 or 18, so we have a little bit more room on the screen. And I'm also gonna set the minimal desired width over here to make sure that everything aligns a little bit better. So I'm gonna make it a 340, and that should be good. Then we're gonna duplicate this text, and that's going to be the text player ready. So let's change it over here first, text player ready. And for this one, we actually want to, let me see, we're going to set the justification over here to center. Then we can simply change the text. So that's going to be ready or not ready. And we also want to change the color. So if we're not ready, I'm going to make it a little red. There we go. And we have the font and stuff set up, so that should be pretty much all. Now let me see. Yeah, we can come back to this later if it turns out it doesn't look right. So let's go into the graph and let's start setting it up. So first we need a few variables to work with. So let's create a new variable, and the first one is going to be the player name. So that's a text variable, and we want to make sure that all of these variables are instance editable and exposed on spawn. So let's enable that. And then we're gonna create new ones. So sorry, that's going to be isHost. So that's a boolean, and that's also instance editable and exposed on spawn. And we need another boolean, and that's isEmptyRow. Again, instance editable, exposed on spawn. And then for convenience, I'm going to add two more variables for the color of the ready and the not ready text. So I'm simply going to call this a color ready. And that's going to be a slate color. And then if I compile it, then in the defaults, I can simply pick the colors over here. So I'm going to set them to color ready green, and then do one for not ready, and that's red. So we have easy access to the colors, and they will be the same everywhere. So there we go. Now let's set up our event construct. So let's get rid of tick and pre-construct. And the first thing we want to do is grab our text player name, and we're going to set the text to the correct player name. So set text. And plug in the variable. There we go. Then we want to know if this is an empty row or not. So we're going to grab a branch and plug in our isEmptyRow boolean. So if the row is empty, then we're going to grab the border and we're going to change the color. So let's grab our border player name, and that should be a variable. So we're going to go to the designer, select the border and make it a variable over here. Then back in the graph, we can drag it in, and we want to set the brush color. So let's drag over here and set the brush color. And then we can simply set it directly in this node. So we're going to drag off and make a slate or linear color in this case. And I simply want to change the alpha. So if this is an empty row, I'm going to set the alpha to 0.3. And if there's actually a player in here, I'm going to make the background a little bit darker. So in that case, I'm going to set the alpha to 1. So let's copy these two and paste them over here. Plug everything in, and in this case the alpha is 1. So there we go. Then we want to know if we are the host. So we're going to grab another branch and plug both of these in here. Plug in our isHost condition. And if we are the host, we want to change the text for the ready setting. So we're going to grab the text player ready. And in this case, we're simply going to set the text. And I'm going to change the text to host over here. And this text is always going to be green. So we can drag off it again and we can set the color and opacity. Color and opacity. Go over here. And then we should be able to plug in our color ready. So we can simply grab it from the variables and plug it in over here. So that's event construct, and then we also need an event to update the player ready text. So let's create a custom event and call this update is player ready. So nearly, but not really. There we go. So we need the two new inputs in here, and both of these are booleans. So the first one is the is text visible. And then we're going to add a second one, and that's is player ready. So let's grab a branch in here, and first let's check if we actually want the text visible. So if it's not visible, we can simply hide it. So we're going to grab the text player ready and set the visibility. Or probably let's just set the alpha, that might be better. So we're going to set the color and opacity in this case. And then let's just drag off here, make a slate color, and then make sure that we set everything to 0 in here. So really. There we go. So this goes into the false bin. And if we want the text to be visible, then we can grab another branch, plug in the player ready condition over here, and then simply set the color and opacity again. So let's copy and paste this stuff. Grab two of these. So in the true and the false bin, make sure that we plug in the target in both of them. And then if the player is ready, we can plug in the variable for the color ready text. And otherwise, we're going to grab the not ready text. Okay. So that's all we need in this server row widget. So we can close, save, and make sure that everything is stored in here. And then we're going to go into our lobby menu and make sure that we set up the use of this one. So let's dive into the lobby designer. And first of all, I'm going to move things around a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of tight with the spaces in here. So I'm going to move the player names to the right and move the level selection to the left. So let's do that first. Let's drag things around a little bit. Always annoying. Oh. So you go over there, then we want to grab this border. So that's this one, and I'm going to move it to this side. So we want to make sure that we move all of this stuff down a little bit. Oh, damn it. So I dragged it outside of the border. So there we go. So I'm going to make this look a little bit cleaner off camera. So right now I'm not going to worry about it too much. So for the player names, I'm just going to keep this border here for now, but we're not really going to use it. I'm going to create a new border in here. Drag it to the top right, and this is going to have an alpha of 0.5 like all of my other borders, and then I'm simply going to enable size to content and make sure that we align it with the top right a little bit, so it aligns with the player widget and with the center, the top of the widgets. And then for the alignment we can set it to 1, so then it will extend to the left side instead of to the right. And inside of this border, we want to add a vertical box. So let's grab a vertical box, drop it on top of here, and that's going to be our vertical box player names. So vert box player names. And we want this to be a variable. So let's enable it on the top right. And then we should be good to go inside of the designer, and we can go into the graph to set things up. So let's take a look. We need to clean up a few functions. So first of all, let's start with the update player names function itself. So that's top one over here. And in here we want to change it because obviously right now we're using widgets. So first we're going to clear our player names, that's fine. Then we're going to grab a for each loop, that's fine as well. And after that it's not really fine. So we can get pretty much rid of all of this stuff. And let's just build it from scratch. So from here we're going to break our player profile, and then we want to create a widget for the player names. So we're going to drag off the loop body and create a widget. So we want to create our lobby player name widget that we just created. So lobby player name row. The owning player, we can simply get the owning player, plug it in over here. And then we can plug in the player name over here, and we should have a variable in here for the isEmptyRow. So I probably forgot to expose that on spawn. So let me go to the lobby player name row widget, and in here isEmptyRow. I forgot to set instance editable and exposed on spawn. So let's make sure that we have that enabled, compile and save, and then go back to the lobby menu so we can refresh this node. So we don't actually need it in here, but we need it later. So let's make sure we have it set up. Now we're going to grab the array index and we're going to compare this. So if it's equal to 0, that means we are the host. So we can simply plug in the condition into the isHost pin over here. Then we want to make sure that we add this to an array. So we're going to make an array for the player name rows. So let's drag off the return value, promote it to a variable, and that's going to be all player name widget blueprints. So all player name widget blueprints. Then I'm going to get rid of the setter over here and turn it into an array. Then we can grab a getter, and for the array we can set an array element, plug it in over here. So the return value is going to be the item, and we're going to grab the index from the for each loop. Make sure we enable size to fit over here. So we have it stored in an array, and then we want to add it to our vertical box player names. So we're going to grab the variable for that, vertbox player names, and we can add a child to vertbox. Go to vertical box, plug it in, and the content is the return value. So we're adding the row widget to our vertical box. And that should be good to go. So if we are completed, we can return, and that should be the update player names. Now let's take a look at updating the player amount. Sorry, had to cough. So we're going to go to update player amounts, and we created that earlier in this video. So over here we want to add some stuff. So let's go to the total player count, and first of all let's check if it's not 0. So we're going to grab a branch in here. It should never be 0, but you never know. So we're going to drag off here and do is not equal to, plug it into the condition, and that's good to go. So if it's not 0, then we're going to grab another branch, and we're going to grab our array of player name row widgets, so the all player name widget blueprints. And in this case, we want to grab the length of this array, and we want to compare it to our local player count and make sure that it's smaller. So let's look for less than, and we're going to plug in our local variable for the total player count. So if we do not have all of the spots created for players, so we have a few empty spots left, then we need to make widgets for those empty spots. So in that case, we're going to grab a for loop. So drag off the true pin and look for a for loop, not for each, but for. And in this case, we want to start the first index at the length of the player name widgets array. So we can grab this length, plug it into the first index. And the last index is going to be the local total player count -1. So subtract 1 and plug it into the last index. And then we simply want to create widgets over here. So we're going to create widget, and we're going to create our player name row widget. So lobby player name row. The owning player, we can get our owning player. So the player name, there's no player in here, so we can simply say waiting for player. So it's not going to be the host, and it's an empty row, so let's make sure that we enable the boolean over here. And then we also want to add these to our array, so we can grab our all player names widget blueprint array. And we're going to set an array element. So the return value is the item, and the index comes from the for loop in this case. We want to enable size to fit. And then we need to add it to the vertical box again. So let's grab the vert box player names, and we're going to add a child to a vertical box. And plug everything in. So now we also have widgets for rows where aren't players. Then if this is completed, we want to update the player ready. So we have an event for that stored and good to go. So we can simply drag it in, plug it into the completed pin, update players ready. And we should have an array with all of these variables. We don't have the array yet. Okay, so we're going to get back to the players ready array. I was a little bit too soon over here. What we can do is go back over here to the false pin. And in the case where we have more widgets than the total player count, so if we reduced the player count in the menu, there might be empty player widgets or stuff like that that we don't need. So we want to get rid of those. So we're going to grab a branch in here again and plug it into the false pin. And in this case, we want to check the length and make sure that it's greater than. So we can copy this stuff and replace the less node for a greater than. So plug it in here, plug it into the condition. So if this is true, then we want to get rid of some widgets. So we can grab a reversed for each loop for all of our widget blueprint names. So let's grab all player name widget blueprint, and we're going to grab a reversed for each loop. So this one goes into the true pin. And then we can simply grab the index and compare it to the total player count. So let's drag off the array index, and if the index is smaller than or less than our local total player count, plug it in over here. Let's grab a branch. So if this is false, then we want to remove the widget. So then we can grab the array element and we can remove from parent, plug it into the false pin, not the true pin. And we also want to make sure that we remove it from the actual array. So we're going to grab our all player name widget blueprint array. And over here, we're going to remove an index, plug it in, and plug in the index from the reversed loop. So we're using a reversed loop because we're removing indexes. So otherwise, we're going to screw ourselves. So that should be good to go. And now let me quickly take a look at the player ready array. Yeah, we're going to get to this function in a little bit. What we can do now is go into it. So let's double click it. And we're going to make a little bit of room over here. So we're going to promote this to a variable. So let's drag off the isPlayerReady array and promote it to a variable. And that's going to be all isPlayerReady. Plug it in over here. And then we can go back into the update player amounts. And we can simply grab this array, plug it in over here. And then this should be good to go, and we do not have to worry about getting back to this. So let's compile and save it. And the next function we want to take a look at is the update player names. The clear player names. So we're going to go to clear player names over here. And this is actually not too hard. So we can get rid of this stuff over here. And we simply going to grab our vertical box for the player names. And we're going to clear all of the children. So clear children. That will take care of the widgets on screen. And then we want to make sure that we actually grab the array and that we clear that one as well. So let's clear the array for the widget blueprint names. And that's all we need to do in here. And then we have one function left, and that's the update players ready function. So let's go into that one. Update players ready. And we want to change this a little bit, to be honest. So first of all, let's make sure that from the completed pin over here, we're simply going to get rid of this stuff. So we're going to rebuild this in a little bit, and we're going to clean things up to make it a little bit less confusing. So get rid of everything connected to the completed pin, and you should be left with this. Then first we want to do is grab this last branch over here and actually get rid of that as well. So we can simply call our update isPlayerReady function on the widget. So we can grab our all player names widgets array. And from this we can get an index. So get a copy. We're going to use the index from the for each loop. And then for this we can call our update isPlayerReady. Plug this one into the false pin. So if we are the server, we do not want to mess with the ready up text because we simply have host there and it's always green. And in other cases, the text is going to be visible, and then we can simply grab the array element as an input for the isPlayerReady. So that will take care of the for each loop over here. And then we want to make sure that we also update everything for the empty player names and things like that. So from the completed pin, first of all, we're going to grab a branch. And over here, we want to grab our local player count and make sure that the number of teams and the maximum team size is okay, so I know, sorry, I got confused with the local count from the other function. So in here, we're grabbing the array from the game mode with the ready booleans. So this array will never be bigger than the actual amount of players. So if there's 3 players in an 8-player lobby, for example, this array will be size 3. So we can check the size of this array, and if the players that we have selected is actually bigger, then we need to make sure that we do something with those empty rows. I hope that kind of made sense. I'm sorry. So we're going to grab our local player count in here, and we're going to make sure that this is smaller than or less than, and we can grab our number of teams. So let's go up here, number of teams, and multiply it with the maximum. So multiply and grab maximum team size as well. So this got me confused. In the other function, we created a local variable for this. I thought this variable was the local variable in the other function, but never mind that. So we're going to plug this in over here. So if the current amount of players in the lobby is smaller than the amount we have set, so we're going to plug it into the condition. Then we want to grab a for loop again. So let's make sure from the true pin, we're going to look for a for loop. And then the first index is going to be our local player count. So that's the variable we have stored in here. So if we have 3 players, then we have index 0, 1, and 2. So we're going to start at index 3. And then the last index is going to be the result of this multiplication minus 1. So let's drag off here, do subtract, and we're going to subtract 1 of this. So that's the last index. And in this case, we want to make sure that we grab our all player name widgets array. So not players ready, the widgets. And we're going to get a copy from this. So we want to grab the array index, and the first thing we're going to do is make sure that it's valid. So grab an isValid over here, plug it into the loop body, and if it's valid, we're going to update the players ready. So drag off the array again, or the getter actually, and then we can call our update isPlayerReady on the widget. So isValid. And we don't want the text to be visible because this is an empty player row. There's not actually a player in here. So we can simply set these to false, and that should be good. Then the last thing we want to do is grab our button for the start game, and we need to make sure that we enable or disable it depending on if all the players are ready. So we can grab a branch, and we want to hook it up to the completed. What is this? That's not a branch. That was the wrong button. There we go. So we're going to hook it up to the completed pin and also to the false pin of the branch before that. And in this case, we want to know if we are the server. Oh, really? And if we are the server, we want to grab our button start game. So let's grab button start game. And we're going to set as enabled. And we can simply grab all of the player counts. So let me see. Local player ready count. Oh, we have a variable in here that counts how many players are ready. So we're going to use that variable, local player ready count. And if that's actually the same size or number as the actual amount of players, so we can simply compare it to the player count. And if this is true, then our start button is enabled, so we can simply plug it in directly and do not need anything like a branch or something like that. So this goes into the true pin, and if we are not the server, we're not going to mess with any of this stuff, so we're simply going to return and then plug this into the false pin as well. So this will update the player ready button, the start game button, depending on how many players are ready. Okay, so I think we have everything pretty much good to go. So now we can go inside of the event graph, and we have some variables that we're not using anymore. So we have the all borders for the player names, and the all text player names, and the all text player ready. And we can actually get rid of those. So if we go to the event construct over here, so we're making arrays for all of those things. So those are the old borders and the old player names and that stuff. So we're going to get rid of this stuff. So let's grab all 3 of these, delete them. And those are actually these variables. So we can simply find the references. And then if we double click these, so we should be able to get rid of this. And then in the event graph, we want to make some changes, obviously. Let me double check quickly. So we can get rid of these setters over here as well. So we are in event construct, and if we go down the line, we have the check is solo game. So over here, the for loop with all of this stuff connected, we can get rid of that. So let's delete it. Then we're going to connect remove from parent directly to the cast to menu game mode over here. And we have text player ready. We can get rid of that one as well. Then let's have a look at the other one. So we already deleted that. That's good to go. Then let's go back over here. We're going to search for all text player names. Find the references. So we only have this setter. That's good to go. And then the text ready, find references. And that's the only one as well. So let's get rid of these ones. Plug in event construct over here. And then we can simply go to the designer over here and get rid of this stuff, and then we can then the variables will be gone without deleting them. So let's grab the border, let's delete it, and then in the graph everything should be cleaned up over here, and we actually have a whole lot less variables to deal with. Okay, so if we did everything correctly, and we did not, so let's see. So we have one for the text player ready over here as well, and we can get rid of that. So that's if it's not a solo game branch. So we can simply grab the set text and set color and opacity for the text player ready, get rid of this one, plug the false pin from the is solo game directly into the is server check, and that should fix it. Compile and save. And now we should be ready to test. So let's have a little look. So let's quickly launch a multiplayer game. Let's make it 2 or 3 players. And let's see. So multiplayer, host game. Let's make sure we have a different profile so we can see the name actually change. And let's join this session. So we need to do a little bit of work over here. The border is way too big, and I think I know why. So it's actually updating, so that's good. And you have to keep in mind this is the new setup, so we're actually creating widgets for each player that enters the lobby. And if we go to the free-for-all, we actually change the amount of players in here. We can go to the game mode options and change the amount of players, and that will also change the players in here. So that's actually working. So as I mentioned, some stuffing's overlapping in here. I'm going to take care of that off camera, simply move some stuff around. That's no big deal. So for the names, I want to make a few small changes. So let's close it down. If we go into the lobby player name row over here, we duplicated the text and I forgot to remove the minimal desired width. So we're going to set this one to 0 for the player ready text, and that will make sure the border shrinks down a bunch. Then I'm also going to go to the actual widget setting over here. So not the border, but the widget. And I'm going to go to padding and set the padding to 2. So that will make sure that there's a little space between all of the widgets for the player names, and that will look a little bit better. And then I think we should be pretty much good. So let's have a little look. Multiplayer, host game. And let's search one. Oh, freaking. Okay, I'm trying to do this somewhat not messy. So one player is good. So as you can see, the border is a lot smaller and we have a little bit of padding in between those. So that looks a little bit better. So I think we actually achieved something today besides setting some variables you don't see. So we have our lobby menu good to go. I'm sorry if it was a tiny bit messy, so all of the widget stuff can be kind of confusing, and it's been a while since I've been in the project myself, so I need to refresh and get my head in here. But I think we managed, so thanks for watching everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later guys, bye bye.